1. My heart still hasn't stopped pounding. This is a true story. Last night I was skiing and camping out of my RV in an unofficial secret spot, high in the Sierra Nevadas of California. The location was right next to one of the most imposing peaks of the area, at the base of which was a frozen lake and a resort closed for the season. Sparse trees surrounded the lake, and a pillowy fog hung over the icy expanse at dawn and dusk. Obscured by banks of snow from the adjacent highway, plow drivers only had bothered to clear a small portion of the road into this resort. It was the perfect place to hide out for a few nights. As soon as I tucked into bed, I started to hear the strange noises again. This time they wouldn't stop. From the absolute darkness and the otherwise total silence of a blanket of snow, I heard something moving. Not human footsteps. It sounded like 2 snow shovels piercing the ground. Quietly, but quickly it traveled. Through my open windows, I suddenly felt an intense feeling of being watched. The entity came from towards the lake, a path which was covered in 3 feet of powder. The noises got louder until it was right up to the side of my window. Terrified and afraid to make a sound, I lay in my bed watching and listening. Only a thin bug screen separated me from this creature in the pitch darkness. On a night with not even a breath of wind to cause the sensation, I felt my RV pitch from side to side. It had climbed to the top. As it clambered about, I heard the now familiar noise of the night's frozen dew cracking under its weight. I could hear the ice fragments shed off the edges of my home and burst upon hitting the ground. I say familiar, because I had heard these noises before. On the first night, ice had also fallen with the sound of footsteps and the shaking of the RV. Thinking it was a person up to no good, I charged outside with a flashlight and a knife. After all, the paranormal usually has a logical explanation. Examining the site carefully, there wasn't so much as a new print in the snow. Satisfied, and with the noises gone, I slept unperturbed. The second night, my brothers slept in the room. I heard the ice crack again, but no more. Neither compared to this third night. Judging from the amount the RV rocked as the entity moved, it was lightweight but agile. It was clever enough to completely stop moving as a car from the highway approached, long before lights would dimly illuminate the campsite. It watched me even when it stopped. It climbed down from the roof. I could hear its snow shovel feet crunch into the ground as it began to pace around my camper. The creature alternated from roof and sides. I realized it was looking for a way in. Breaking free of my petrification, I gently rolled over in bed and shut the 2 windows next to my head, covering them with blinds. It noticed. I immediately heard the shoveling retreat, but it didn't leave. Straining my ears, I could tell it was pacing about 30 yards away. Even though there was no wind, what sounded like a metal sign clanging against a tree persisted. I tiptoed to my knife and clutched it against me. Eventually, I fell into a fitful sleep. I had a pleasant dream about my grandparents. At the end, it changed. I was on the couch in the camper, and from a roof vent above me, a dark ooze draped into my space. Gathering my courage, I unsheathed my knife and thrust at the shape with a shout. To my surprise, I was still in bed. My knife was sheathed, and I just stabbed a guitar. Still, it was too topically relevant of a dream. I wanted to stay and sleep, but I wanted to not be cursed by this entity even more. I brandished my knife and headlamp, bursting out of my door. My light whipped wildly about, looking for any evidence of the creature that had visited. Nothing. No footsteps, no roof ice shattered on the ground, no metal sign attached to any tree for clanging. I jumped into the driver's seat and got out of there. I slept at a nearby populated campsite until dawn. Not a single noise, even with the windows wide open. What was that thing? What did it want? Surely there must be a physical explanation in the scientific age we live in. But after what I experienced, I'm not so sure. As I post this, my mind keeps going back to the dream of darkness oozing in through the ceiling. Since I slept in the populated campsite without incident, I believe it's gone. I keep a Nazar amulet watching my bed for these kinds of superstitious reasons. However, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't afraid to go to bed tonight. 2. I am 28 years old now, and this happened when I was 17 years old. So I have this friend named Corey. He was crazy but a really cool dude. Everyone who met him usually liked him. He graduated high school before me and went off to Vincennes, Indiana. One school day when I was in study hall, last class of the day, which I believe was on a Wednesday, I was sitting at a desk next to one of the windows that we have in the classroom that faced the entrance that the school buses would come in. I looked out of the window just in time to see what looked like my friend Corey coming in on a bike and a tie-dyed t-shirt. I remember thinking when I saw him, what is he doing here? Isn't he supposed to be in Vincennes? And then I left it at that. However, that isn't the end. So the end of the day bell rung. I collected my things and headed out to the hallway to get into my locker to grab some textbooks and packets to take home that I needed for my homework assignment. And wait for my boyfriend at the time because him and I usually walked out together. Well, he showed up and we headed down the stairs to door 13, where we usually exited for the bus riders. As my boyfriend and I headed out the door, I saw Corey standing by the sidewalk. I looked at him and was confused. He then told me that he was going to get hit by a car and die. I looked at him in disbelief and said, "No, you're not." And I had the ugliest look on my face. I didn't believe him. I tugged slightly on my boyfriend's arm to get his attention and tell him Corey was here, and he said he was going to get hit by a car. By the time my boyfriend and I looked back, Corey was gone. My boyfriend at the time said it was impossible for Corey to be here because he was still in Vincennes, as I suspected, which left me even more confused. I got home and told my mom about it, and the topic was just dropped. Lo and behold, I come into school on Thursday morning, just to get called to the office. When I arrived, which wasn't a very far walk, it was just the opposite direction of the cafeteria on the first floor, I was greeted by the school counselor for my grade. I was a junior at the time, and she escorted me to the meeting room. When I got there, I saw my boyfriend and a few of my other friends there. They were crying. I didn't know what was going on. Then, like a damn bomb, my counselor hit me and said, "Corey was found dead this morning at about 5:30 a.m. He was hit by a car." I was stunned. I cannot emphasize that enough. The first words that came out of my mouth were, "No way, I literally just saw him yesterday." In which I received very confused and angry looks. I just shut up and processed what I was being told, and I just cried. I cried so hard where I didn't even know if I would be able to make it through the rest of the school week. I managed, somehow. I thought it was a miracle. I made it through the day magically, and then went home to see that the news was on, and sure enough, Corey was dead. The driver of the vehicle that hit him wasn't paying attention, because she was looking at the floor mats for something she lost, and ended up running him over. That is still one of the weirdest things that I remember to this day. 3. Back in college, around 10 years or so ago, I was on campus late one night, returning from break. Essentially, there was a mess up on my end with booking my flight a night earlier than the dorms opening, and I didn't have a place to sleep. After a train and bus ride to campus, it's around 9 to 10 p.m. And so I'm coordinating with some buddies for a place I can spend the night at while the dorms are closed. It's dark. Campus is completely empty but decently lit, and I'm just thinking of spots I could potentially crash at in the event nothing comes up. The campus has a ton of seating areas like benches and couches, especially around the library. So I decided to just go to one of the spots I know with a good vantage point, but is still somewhat hidden, so I don't have to deal with any random people passing by. My bench of choice has my back against a building on a raised patio, so I have a great view of anything within 100 or so yards in front of me. Not a full 360-degree view, but solid enough for me to feel comfortable with my surroundings. So there I am, texting my buddies, joking around with them about the situation, as we're striking out with available options, with only a few people we're waiting to hear back from. I'm keeping an eye on my phone battery, and fortunately, we find one of our friends who's staying at the dorms, where international students live at, and don't close down for the break. So we just gotta wait for her confirmation, and so I breathe a sigh of relief and kick back, and just enjoy the peacefulness of the quiet campus. Maybe around 10 or so minutes go by when we hear back that she's able to house me, but won't be free for maybe another hour or so. I decided to hang where I was and wait there, as I didn't want to be waiting outside her dorm with luggage. Now for the paranormal part. As I'm sitting there, I look onto the library, which is a big cube shape, in front of me. Like at my 11 o'clock for reference of direction. I notice 3 lights around chest height steadily moving alongside the library wall. There's campus security, so I figured it was them with flashlights, but considering it was late, I kept staring to confirm. As they continued to move, I noticed how unusually steady they were, and that I couldn't quite make out the shapes of the bodies they should have been attached to. I was about 40 yards away from them, and my vantage point had me about 15 feet above ground, so I had a great view of anything that would turn the corner or move out into the open space between the buildings. The library walls are windows, and because of the design of the building, there are pillars located 5 yards from the walls, with about 7-ish yards of spacing in between them. I share this because those orbs would disappear behind these pillars as they moved along the wall in my general direction, south, and did so 3 times before finally vanishing and not coming out the other side. They traveled around 20 yards, and I freaked out because I was fully expecting and wanting to see a pair or trio of people. I immediately scanned the area, trying to see if they may have turned back or moved anywhere else, but nothing at all. I even got up and walked up to the edge of the rail in front of me to get a better look, and nothing. I could see everything, and there's no way I could have missed them entering or leaving. After scanning for a bit, more confused as to what I witnessed, I immediately jumped back in my phone to tell my buddies about what just happened, and they say to just start heading over to our friend's place. We text for about 2 more minutes, when suddenly I felt an unsettling coldness around me, and my phone dies on me despite it being at 60+%. I say screw it and grab my stuff and begin to head downstairs, while on high alert to make sure I don't miss anything around me. I have to walk by the library where the orbs were, and I walk under the pillars and was convinced that those orbs were definitely between the walls and the pillars, as I would have seen anyone leave the area from where I was sitting. It was a long walk to where my friend was, and once my phone's charged, I see my buddy's message, who freaked out when I didn't respond after sharing the experience. Post-event findings. Now, what I experienced is questionable, so I wanted to do some digging into what on earth it could have been. After researching the university's history, I learned of a triple murder that occurred on campus in the 90s. A grad student, engineering, shot and killed 3 professors in the same department after not receiving the credit he wanted on his thesis and subsequent lack of equipment. The murders took place in one of the buildings nearby where I was at, and considering the department they belonged to, one could imagine them having strong ties to the library. After reading this, I got goosebumps, and believe it was that unfortunate trio I saw taking a stroll through campus. 4. Hello everyone. I will share a few short stories of things that happened in my childhood home. 3 of the things were in the same bedroom, where the previous owner is said to have passed of old age, natural causes as far as I know. When I was about 6 or so in the early 90s, I shared a room with my younger brother who would have been 4 at this time. For a clearer picture, we had a detachable bunk bed. During this time, they were detached and one bed was at the wall of the room and the other across it. There was a space of about 5 feet in between. There was a window right by the foot of my bed that was covered by light curtains that let dim moonlight in, just enough to be able to see object silhouettes. One night, well into the night when everyone had long gone to bed, I awoke to hear my brother whimpering. I thought to myself, let's get up and see what's wrong with my brother. Just as my muscles were contracting as I made the move to get up, I looked ahead and saw a figure sit up at the foot of the bed, as if they were on my bed. I could see the silhouette of a man with short hair. He whispered, "Who is it?" I lay there completely frozen in fear, breathing as silently and slowly as I could to not alert this figure of my presence. I remember being soaked in sweat and not blinking until the sun came up. For some reason, I felt ashamed to tell my parents about this. By this time, I was already obsessed with horror movies, so I thought they would blame this on the movies and prohibit me to watch them. I eventually told them, and my mom said I needed to pray. The next situation took place in the same room. My mom asked me as a teenager if I remembered telling her about the man with no legs. She said that maybe a year before the other incident, I had told her that I had seen an old man with long white hair sitting on my bed. The man was missing his legs from the knee down. She said I told her that the man spoke to me, but I don't recall what he said. At this time, we had an uncle and his family living with us. His daughter was about 5 or 6 at the time, and they were using my old bedroom where the other incidents had taken place. My mom was a little spooked by what she told me next. She said that my aunt, my 5-year-old cousin's mom, told her that my cousin saw an old man with long hair and no legs on the bed. She also mentioned that the man spoke to her, but I don't mention what she said the man said. This freaked me out a bit. I haven't spoken to my family about this for years, but I want to bring it back up to get more details. One last incident. When I was in my early teens, we still had the bunk bed I mentioned in the first story, but this time it was put together, one on top of the other. I slept on the top one, and one evening, I went into my room and climbed up to my bed to lay down and chill. I was probably laying for about 20 minutes, but I was fully alert, as it was early evening and the whole household was up in different areas of the house. During this time, I was hearing the sheets of the bottom bed move around. I was also hearing the old mattress springs squeaking. I just assumed my brother had decided to join me in my chilling activity by laying down. Eventually, my mom calls from the kitchen that dinner is ready, so I jump out of my top bed and was going to say something to my brother, probably challenging him to a race to the kitchen, when I noticed that his bed is empty. I was terrified. Who the hell had been tossing and turning in his bed while I was laying on the top one? I asked him non-threateningly or suspiciously if he'd been in the room, and he said no, as he sat on the couch watching TV. I'll never know what that was. I am an atheist and do not believe in supernatural entities, but it's really eerie some of what's happened in that room. Especially the old man with no legs coincidence between my cousin and I. I just chalk it up to a young and hyperactive imagination at the time. That helps me not lose sleep. What do you all think? 5. This is my first truly unexplained paranormal moment ever in my life. I need to share, but if I tell my wife, she'll be freaked out, and it isn't worth it. Background. We have a near 3-year-old child, and we're still using an AV monitor in his room. It has night vision of some kind, and we use it mostly for the audio in the middle of the night, if he has a nightmare, etc. Also important is the fact that we have a white noise machine and a nightlight double in his room, which makes a low to medium level of constant white noise. In mornings, when it's my turn to get up with him, I get up 30 minutes earlier than he does. He's an incredible sleeper, so it's predictable. Grateful to my wife for the sleep training. To use the bathroom and shower. Important note, our bedroom is adjacent to the kids' room, and the house, being not terribly new, is not soundproof between rooms. The master bathroom is directly connected via an air vent, and so I can hear him talking, laughing, singing from his room in the bathroom without any monitoring or other aid. So I'm sitting in the bathroom in that time before he wakes up. He wakes up and starts doing the usual self-soothing while he waits, which consists mostly of songs and little stories that he tells himself. It's actually adorable to listen to. He's used to me doing my bathroom routine before getting him, presuming he wakes up before I'm done, so at this moment I know I have about 20 or so minutes before he gets impatient. Okay, background over. Here's the story. Suddenly the monitor stops emitting the sound of his voice. What it is still emitting is the white noise of the sound machine. That's not strange in and of itself, except that I'm sitting next to the air vent between the rooms, and I can still hear him singing. I'm momentarily sort of amused and confused, so I turn on the monitor to look at the video, and he's lying there awake, still and without his mouth moving, but looking otherwise normal, blinking and such. I'm getting more and more generally confused and a little weirded out as I watch. His mouth is not moving. I verify multiple times on the video. The monitor is playing the sound of the white noise, but is not transmitting the sound of his voice, which I can hear specifically continuing to sing because I'm sitting next to the air vent. That goes on for probably 2 minutes, with me just frozen in some sort of awe and confusion. Not necessarily hair standing up freaked, but still like, WTF is happening? Then the sound of his singing comes back through the monitor, and whatever this episode was is over. I'm disappointed to admit that I can't remember whether I was necessarily looking at the monitor or not when his voice returned to the monitor. There was just a lot going on in my brain in the moment, and I don't have that detail recalled. Suffice to say, this was a relatively innocuous paranormal event, but for me it's a first and totally unexplained. I saw him lying there, quietly on the video, with the monitor only playing the sound of the white noise machine, but heard him distinctly singing through the air vent adjoining the rooms. It's like there was a momentary split of the universe and then it rejoined. I don't know. Anyway, I had to tell someone, even if only a few people listen. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Paranormal Stories, episode 309. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Please do hit the like button before you leave, thank you kindly. Okay, let's see. We have a little shout out that goes to the author of the first story, a Reddit user Uyghur. Thank you very much for allowing us to use your story, Uyghur. Alrighty, let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is, what is something that you didn't know you needed until you had it for the first time? As in, you survived all your life without it, but as soon as you tried it, you used it, you were like, oh yes, of course. I should always have this. I'm asking that because as I'm recording, my throat's a little sore because I'm doing a lot of recording, so I made a cup of throat coat tea with a little bit of honey in it. And it's something I got by for years without until I was looking, obviously, I do voice work, so I was looking into things that would be beneficial and it would help me maintain my voice. And that was one of the most frequently and commonly suggested things. So I bought it, and I'm so glad I discovered it, because I have kept a box always in the house from then on. And thankfully the brand I like has gone down in price a little over the years as it's more easy to get in the UK. Previously it was an import, but now it's a little more readily available. And what are some of your favorites? Those things that you didn't know you needed them until you did, and then it just became an essential thing for you to have. Please do drop your answers in a comment below. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.